Is the main event for UFC 300 a dud, or are we in for something special? Before we get into that, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So Dana White announced the main event, Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill, immediately after UFC 298. So Mark, my first question to you, is the main event for UFC 300 a dud?
It's a good fight, but with the amount of build-up that was involved with this, you'd expect what, like is Tank Abbott coming back? Something. It seemed like a little bit lackluster in comparison to the
Yeah.
build-up. The actual fight itself, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a fight I want to see. I'm not sure who's gonna win, if I'm totally honest. It's interesting, but to main event 300 after all the talk that Dana's done over the past few weeks, just feels a little disheartening. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. It's a great fight. Really, really fun fight. And it's a fight that I've wanted to see for a while, but it is disappointing as the main event for 300. I really think this should be at 301 because that card's in Brazil, and I think that'd be a much bigger fight in that location. And I think now putting the main event here has kind of ruined that Brazil card, right? It seems misplaced.
Yeah, but I mean, don't forget, if in Brazil, if Alex loses, the crowd will just leave before he even does his speech anyway, like they did with Glover. So no, I agree though. I think that could have been saved for 301. But then we've posed the question over the past few weeks: who else is free for 300? So we've got to be realistic. Whilst our
Mm.
expectations were high, we've got to maintain that level of realism of like what can actually happen
Definitely. And I,
realistically.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, this is a realistic main event, but there's a big problem. Dana White built this up so much. That's the issue. I don't feel like we built it up. Old baldy bastard Dana White did, he did it. So with how much he sort of built this up, um, did you expect a lot more just the way he was talking?
I'd say so. I just expected like this absolute blockbuster event. The knee-jerk reaction is to go to, oh, we're getting Connor versus Chandler. But
Mm.
forget about that fight. You might as well erase it from your mind. Until they're in the cage, that fight ain't happening. That's where my mindset
Don't
is with it.
disappoint me, Mark. Don't break my heart. Don't do it.
Oh, well, how often can we be excited for this? Every time Connor farts, we're like, oh, he's coming back, he's coming back. Like, just
Yeah.
forget about him. The UFC's
I
moved
know.
on. But
Issue
I
is
don't
I'm
know.
a sucker for it. I'm a real sucker. I'm like, oh, Connor said something. Chandler's on Raw. Right. And the fight's happening next week. I just fall for it every time.
Oh God, yeah, it's just a continuous promo, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I don't think there's anyone. There's a few others, maybe Adesanya. He's
Mm.
he's worthy of main event in 300 as well. But then you go, well, he's coming off a loss. Who would he fight? Unless it was a super fight with Alex at 205. That ain't going to happen now. So that's just all
Mm.
wasted words. So
It,
it,
it's
it is what
tricky,
it
isn't
is. I
it?
mean, it is Dana's fault. I'm understood. Yeah, I'll agree with
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? And sort of, it feels though that Pereira versus Hill was put together at the very last minute. Do you think whatever plans they had originally backfired and then Dana Wright quickly scrambled and put this together?
Well, I do believe that Dana had said they were yet to announce the co-main event and the main event for
Mm.
300. If that is the case, perhaps this was billed as the co-main event, and whatever the main event fell through, and he's just like, okay,
Mm.
well, we do have this fight locked in, so we could just promote that to the main event because the card is stacked overall. There's some people saying, "Ah, 300 is the worst card ever." You're like, shut your mouth.
I know
Like it's a stacked card. Opening the card is Figgy versus Garbrandt. How much more do you want? It's
yeah,
all the way
100%.
through. There's not one fight that you're not bothered about in this card. And you've got to understand that this is real fighting. It's not the WWE. So you can't have like spectacular finishes and like, yeah, let's chuck them in a ladder match in there. Like it's not going to happen. It's fights. You've got to be realistic. Maintain that level. Anyone who's complaining about 300, I swear they're just a spoilt fan. I don't know. It's just because their favorite fighter isn't fighting. It's
Yeah.
irritating.
Yeah, it is irritating, isn't it? Because 300 is such a good card. But just moving back on to whatever this main event was, it does feel as though something went wrong, right? It feels like they had something planned, they had something in mind, and then that backfired. I genuinely think the plan was Leon Edwards versus Hamzat Chimaev, but Hamzat cannot fight because it's Ramadan. And apparently, Dana said that Leon was offered three fights, and he said yes to all three, but his opponent said no. So I'm assuming it's going to be Bilal, Shavkat, and Hamzat who all turned down that fight. I just think for the timing, those are the three fighters that make sense.
Well, Leon's one of the names in that mix, isn't he? Where you look right, realistically, after his last fight with Colby, he could be ready at this time. So he's just one of the names. Him, uh, Alex Pereira, we didn't know how Jamahal Hill's ankle were. So you're like, okay, well, these two are the main events. So it's one of these two. So that's why it's another aura of disappointment, I guess, in the sense of when the main event finally got announced, you go, well, we already knew that. We already
Yeah.
guessed that. You know, like, I don't know. I think we just wanted to be surprised and pleasantly surprised at that. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. Leon versus someone would have been great, and that would have been just an insane card because we've already got championships up and down. Light heavyweight division, we've got Zhang Wei Li, we've got the BMF, and imagine the welterweight on there as well. 4 title shots, that would be insane. I don't think anyone would
Yeah.
have any room to complain whatsoever.
Yeah, it'd be a crazy one, wouldn't it? I'd have loved to have seen Leon on this card. Maybe not Leon versus Bilal, but Leon versus Shavkat or Leon versus Hamzat. That'd be a really, really fun fight.
Mm.
So Mike, let's quickly jump back to Jamahal Hill and Alex Pereira. Who do you think leaves UFC 300 as champion?
It's a tough one, is that because every time I bet against Alex, he's proved me wrong, and every time I bet against Jamal, he's proved me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I mean, this is why it's a really interesting fight as well, because you think you can't let any hill be the one that you die on because they
Mm,
both surprise you. They both got crazy power. I used to think Alex were too rigid. He's too like kind of slow and stiff, like a kind of 80s robot fighting machine where it's just forward punches, that's it. But he's not. He's got it all, and his leg kicks chopping him down. I'd probably give the edge to Alex if I'm honest, but not really too sure. He's been around for a long time. He's had a lot of
mm.
fights, not just MMA fights, but competition in general.
Yeah.
And I just think that experience level will bring something that Jamahal Hill might be a little overwhelmed by.
Yeah, definitely. I'm leaning Alex Pereira because I feel like you have to, right? He's such a high level elite fighter, and it seems difficult to pick Jamahal Hill. But I think with how cursed this division is, almost anything can happen. We've not had a successful defense since Jan versus Izzy. So Jamal could come out and put Alex's lights out. We never know, and especially when Alex is getting that little bit older. But Jamal Hill is coming off an injury as well, so it's so hard to make a prediction for this fight. But I'm really, really excited to see how it plays out. So putting aside, that aside for a moment though, if it wasn't this as the main event, what would have your ideal main event have been for UFC 300?
Just to reiterate what we were talking about, I really thought it was going to be Leon. I really, because I think Leon, he could do with, as great of a fighter as he is, he's not a fan favorite. And I
No.
think headline in the main event of 300 coming in, and that would have done him a lot of favors. I really thought we were going to get to see Leon, or what we were speaking about. I thought potentially Izzy versus Alex at 205. They're the only viable options. I thought, okay, that's probably what's going to happen. But again, you just don't know, really, do you? I mean, there's still time for a CM Punk return. There is still time. Wait till his triceps fine. Watch him come back and just get dominated again. There's still time for that to headline.
Could be, Matt. It could be, especially now that TKO has bought UFC and WWE. We could see it happen. Probably not, but we'll we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, for me, I agree. I'd have loved to have seen Leon come back. I think maybe as a co-main event rather than the main event, because I think the problem is Leon Edwards is not that big fan favorite yet, is he? But a big title defense on a big card like this could do him some favors. What I really, really wanted to see there was Alex versus Izzy at 205. I think that's a super fight, isn't it? That's main event worthy for UFC 300. It felt the only plausible fight that could main event at this caliber. And yet, unfortunately, it's quite a lackluster main event instead. Um, but Mark, putting aside the main event, what do you think of UFC 300 overall?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's the best looking card that I think I've ever seen, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We've got it's stacked from start to finish. This is going to be a long live stream for us. This is going to be a long.
Yes.
As a UK fan, I'm going to be a tired boy the next day. I think it's going to be great. We've got banger after banger all the way through the card. Every single fight, you look at it and you think, "Ooh, You know, like there's something on the line, whether it be a title shot or like what's going to
Yeah.
happen here. Even like, what do you call her? Brock Lesnar, Kayla Harrison.
Yeah.
She's fighting Holly Holm. You're like, okay,
Brock Lesnar.
this is the debut of, you know, the strongest woman in the world or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. We've got fights. Jim Miller, we've got him fighting on there. BMF title. It's just stacked from start to finish. Even Jessica Andrade, she's never been in a boring fight.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're like,
It's one of these cards that is so huge, isn't it? There's, almost every single fight I care about what happens, right? That's how big this card actually is. And like you were saying, it's probably the biggest card I've ever seen. I cannot think of anything of this caliber. Though, I mean, that's assuming no one pulls out. There's still quite a bit of time left.
that's
Hopefully
true.
not. God, if
That is true, but there is no piss breaks on this card.
no.
Unless between fights, that's it. That's when it speaks volumes, isn't it? You're like, when are we going to get to go for a shit? That's when you know it's a good card, when you don't want to go for a shot.
Well, let's move on from Mark's shit and let's get the video ended. UFC 300, sure, the main event's a little bit lackluster, but this is an incredibly exciting card. Like you said, Mark, from top to bottom, this is stacked and there's not a single piss break. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.